Thanks for staying with us. Former Director Generals have been engaged in various initiatives to help build a capable developmental state in recognizing challenges facing the state. A group of 27 former DGs came together in 2016 to express their concern about the situation. The Association of Former DGs aims to bring together former officials who adhere to values of integrity, honesty and transparency. To unpack this, we're joined by former Director General at Environmental Affairs, Pam Yako, and former Transport Department Director General Dipak Patel. Good evening to you both. Thank you so much for your time this evening. One would say that when we look at, the role of Director Generals, it's quite key in a department. But when we see what, has been coming out from the Zondo Commission of Inquiry and also in some, other public, corruption cases, there's serious allegations that are now dogging this particular office. What would you say is at the heart of this? Is it because they're simply buckling under pressure, or is it simply an issue of incompetence and not knowing what to do? I'll begin with you, Ms. Yako.
Thanks very much. Good evening to the viewers. I think, let me start by saying that there's still quite a lot of directors general out there that are serving the public and doing their jobs diligently. And the danger that we need to just make sure that we don't run into is to say that to paint everyone with the same brush. Having said that, I think there is a real challenge that in some instances there has been. I would say all of the above that you've raised, that people have been scared of losing their jobs, and in some instances did things all did not play their role as directors general in terms of ensuring that the public service remains true to its values and serving the people. So I would say that it's a combination of those things.
And Mr. Patel, one of the things that, we saw President Cyril Ramaphosa say this year when we were, looking at Public Service Month is that, he says that there's an area that government is now giving special attention to, and he's calling it political administrative interface, where lines of accountability at most senior levels of the state have become blurred. And this is, of course, political office bearers not even knowing where to draw the line. And even now, director generals who are finding themselves under pressure and having to then either give in to what these political office bearers want or simply face losing their jobs. Talk to us about this disconnect that appears to be playing out.
Sure. Thank you, Bongiwe, and good evening to your listeners. Let us say that the role of directors general or accounting officers is quite central to the interface, as you point out, between policy and politics on the one hand and administration on the other hand. We, as former directors general, I suppose, had it slightly easier in the sense that we all had quite a rich history in activism to end apartheid, and we came into a system where morality, a code of ethics, and values that enshrined in the Constitution were upheld. However, let us be fairly clear that there was a period in our country, and that is all coming out now in the Zondo Commission, where there was not only a blurring of that interface, but in fact a gross disregard for accountability in the public service. And it ushered in, unfortunately, an era where, as my colleague Pam says, directors general were probably faced with the option of leaving or buckling under pressure, or in the worst cases, as we are hearing, as you point out, in the State Capture Commission, some of them actually moved to the dark side and in fact became interfaces for corruption. Having said that, we believe that a new era has been ushered in. However, the damage has been done. And as we, as former directors general, as you also point out, in 2016, rallied in order to express our very deep concern about the state of affairs, we have since then been constituting ourselves into a positive force, and we believe the conditions exist now to roll back all of the misdemeanors and all of the damage that has been done. In this respect, we as former Directors General are offering our services for a renewal of the public service, for a professionalizing of the cadre of management in the public service, but importantly, as you point out, for a return back to professional values, ethics, and administrative standards as far as accounting officers are concerned. And we believe that the Constitution makes enough provision and the conditions now exist for senior public servants, but Directors General in particular, to be able to stand up and say, no, this is not correct, and we will not actually do this. I do believe that under the current administration, we have the opportunity to rebuild what we believe, as all of us, as former Directors General, believe that damage has been done, and we believe that the time is now to begin to rebuild a public service which is capable, accountable, responsive to people's needs, non-party political, and geared towards service delivery for our people.
Where would you say the deterioration started? Because we did see a lot of it over the years, which now has eroded so badly. Where would you say, when you look at the work that you've done thus far, is the problem area?
Look, I think as former Directors General, we are also very much aware that we are non-party political, firstly, but non-political in a general sense, secondly. The fact that 27 of us who served in the first and second administrations stood up in, I think it was May 2016, to be counted amongst the people who had no option but to say we have serious concerns that our country and the public service in particular is being ravaged, is being demolished, is being damaged, that the time is now to actually make our voices heard. Since then, and a change of administration, we have increased our numbers and have worked very, very hard over the last 2 years in particular to come up with a constitution that defines how we will play our role in helping a public service professionalize and build capacity. But secondly, a code of ethics, which fundamentally puts down the markers for good, ethical, professional, and capable behavior that we think the public service should actually display.
Pam, one of the things we're now seeing is that, when we talk about corruption, it's also filtering down to those, to the foot soldiers, if I can put it that way. We're seeing even some of the public servants being accused of stealing grants meant for the poor. So certainly this cancer will continue to trickle down to the foot soldiers if it's not dealt with adequately.
Yes, indeed. I think, as Dipak has already said, I think for me, there's a couple of things that will help us in dealing with the problem. First and foremost, I do believe that you need very strong leadership. You need leadership that says enough is enough, and the right message must come from the top. And I think the messages that the president has been saying and other senior government officials it's a beginning of a change in a trajectory that we all know are not proud of. But also some of the institutions that we have, like the Chapter 9 institutions, and notably here, it's the Public Service Commission that has to play its role and make sure that it remains the body that reports on some of these challenges that are happening in the public service. And the Office of the Auditor General is another public Chapter 9 institution, also plays a significant role in terms of raising people's awareness. Remember, what I do believe in is that people are central in this whole thing. So what we didn't know 15 years ago about what is a qualified audit or a disclaimer, it's now every South African, if not most South Africans, know that when the Auditor General releases her report, everyone knows what's going on in the municipalities, in the in government departments. So there's an increasing awareness from citizens, which is my second point. I think the role of citizens in terms of bringing these things, because remember, there is always the corrupt and the corruptee. And as long as we don't, our citizens don't stand up and say no, enough is enough, and play their part, we do have a challenge.
All right. Thank you to you both for your time this evening. That was former Director General at Environmental Affairs, Pam Yako, and former Director General at the Transport Department, Dipak Patel.